What's up, everyone? Welcome to Construction Technology Podcast. I'm Luigi, co-founder CEO of Provision. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Mike, who's a recent father again. Congratulations, Mike. Just had a baby girl from Build Vision, and Andrew from Join. We're also joined by Cam from ClearStory. What's up, gentlemen? How are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
Amazing. Very, very good. Cam, thanks so much for joining. I've been following ClearStory from afar. I'm very close with Aaron Thompson from GS Futures. He was one of the first people I spoke to when I started Provision. He's an advisor to the company, and he's always like sung your praises. He's had very, very good things to say. Obviously, he's an investor. I think he led this Series A or the seed.
It was there was one of those unnamed rounds in between our Series A and Series B.
Right. But he's always
It
had
was
really good
mostly
things
just
to
to
say.
get them into the company, actually.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Aaron. And he's a big fan of yours. Maybe give us an overview of ClearStory and
Tell me you're
yourself.
raising without telling me you're raising. Jeez.
We're actually not raising. I'm happy
Now
to
for
chat through that as
Luigi.
well.
Luigi singing the praises of the VC.
Oh,
I don't need to sing Aaron's praises. I mean, like, I'm a texting relationship. He just sent me coffee, but no, we're not raising.
Aaron's the man. He's been fantastic having around the company.
Yeah,
I mean, I think for me coming from construction, talking about my background, like I didn't raise any venture capital for the first. Gosh, we launched in 2018. I don't think it was until 2021 that we raised our seed round. So I did it on my own for a number of years, and now that we have investors and stuff, and good investors, this has been a huge value add for me figuring all this stuff out. So Aaron and several others are great to have on
yeah.
our cap table.
So tell us about yourself, Cam, really high level. Obviously, we know ClearStory. I know the story generally, but for maybe people in construction or general contractors who are listening who don't know ClearStory, what's the elevator pitch? What do you do? And why are you excited about this problem?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at a really simple terms, like ClearStory is basically a business network for the construction industry, and we focus on helping contractors deal with out of contract work and really all the workflows between companies. So the reason why I started this company is because my background was construction. So I worked for a company called DevCon Construction in the Bay Area for about 9 years. And as a project manager, my biggest thing I wanted real-time cost visibility. I wanted to know where I stood on my cost exposure whenever I had a minute to go do forecasting and working in my budgeting tool. And for a general contractor, cost is basically 90+% downstream change orders because you're a contractor, right? You write subcontracts, and the cost you have is when those subcontracts change. And so we would have, my last two projects, one project I had 2,700 sub change orders, another job I had 800, and they were like the same size job. So it's like really hard to predict which job is going to have more change. And each job, I think I had the 2,700 job, I had like 1.5 project engineers working underneath me. And so it was basically like, what trade-off do we want to make? Like, do we want to understand our cost visibility? Because I'm going to need someone full-time doing that. And so that was, the early idea behind ClearStory was create a shareable cloud-based change order log. So instead of us emailing our subs once a month, asking for a change order log, the subs would just submit through a platform and everyone would have real-time visibility and everyone could then keep their financial software up to date with the latest exposure. So yeah, we launched, I bootstrapped it, kind of worked on it nights and weekends, like off to the side, hiring offshore developers, super painful. And then we launched in 2018. And the way ClearStory works is like, subcontractors can use us across their whole company, and they can use us as a workflow layer and communication layer on change orders. So they can invite their GCs to ClearStory, or they can send them a shareable link, or they can just use the platform and the GC doesn't have to interact with ClearStory. And then the way GCs use it is they'll write us into their subcontracts and they'll say no change order is valid or T&M ticket is valid until it's been posted on ClearStory. And then that way they have real-time visibility. And then GCs can use it with their owners as well. So basically anyone dealing with change orders can use ClearStory.
Can you delineate the difference? This is a super basic question. I don't mean to interrupt you, but can you delineate the difference between a T&M tag and a change order for me, someone who spends most of their time in design and pre-con? I recognize it's an incredibly basic question.
Yeah. Well, there's like change orders touch basically everything, right? They're the nexus of change, like in the industry. Like everything funnels back to this process. So there's tons of ways change orders can originate, but there's kind of like three core workflows. There's like what we call like a forward price change, which is like a typically like a design change, or potentially you just want a quote for them to work your subs to work overtime on Saturday. But you want that price up front, you want to approve it. And so like a design change, most of the industry will send that out via email and they'll be like, hey, you have 2 weeks to tell me whether you have a cost impact. And then they have to hunt down 30 responses from all 30 of their subcontractors. It's like a mini bid in the process. You're just bidding to one contractor. And then the other work stream is, hey, we don't have time to go through that effort. Just go do the work and we'll track it. And that's where the T&M tag process for the industry comes in place. The way the process works, though, is neither the subcontractor or the general contractor want to sign off on cost out on the job site. So the T&M tag is, in Boston, they call it a T&M slip. My old company, we called it an extra work authorization, but most of the industry understands it as a T&M tag. And so this document is, I think it's still like 99 or 98% of subs still do this on triplicate carbon copy paper. And they basically write down the labor, the material, the equipment, and a description of what they did. And then the general contractor, superintendent or foreman or whoever's on site signs off on the work. And they press hard on those paper documents and they split them apart. And the sub keeps 2 of the copies, the GC keeps 1 copy. And then that document has to go back to the sub's office, and then it has to be priced, which is typically an Excel workbook. And they have a rate sheet that they have to pull all the rates. They have to scan the T&M tag. They have to price it. They have to export a PDF. They have to attach the T&M tag as a document. So pre-AI, we automated this whole process. So with ClearStory, if you have our mobile app, you can create T&M tags, attach photos. Both parties get a digital copy immediately that's logged in ClearStory. And then the subs can store all their rates in ClearStory and they can automatically price those T&M tags. And so that's why a lot of subcontractors, a lot of them buy us for that workflow. Like painting contractors is one of our biggest verticals because paint is inevitably scuffed up during the job. They have to, paint touch up is a allowance every GC carries on their project. So that's a T&M process. The third work stream that we also facilitate is just like what we call like an unsolicited change. So if the sub identifies an impact, again, instead of them emailing it over, they log it through ClearStory. And that way, we captured those 3 work streams, which basically make up all the GC's change order risk on the project.
What are the buckets of maybe like root cause that necessitates a change? Like there could be scope gaps. There could be a GC request. Hey, I need you to accelerate or compress the schedule. There could be like a change notice or like a variation notice, depending on that's the last one that you described. But like, how would you bucket why these changes occur in general?
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with like joining, what Andrew works on is, right now, every project is super fast paced. And actually, one of the first AI features we launched just a couple of months ago is a reason categorization feature that automatically categorizes like every change. And so it kind of works like your personal finance tool. So like when you log in, every change you've sent on the sub side, you can see a nice category breakdown of every single COR you've submitted. And the same on the GC side. And it's shockingly data that like doesn't really exist. On the GC's financial software, they create PCOs. It's sort of the starting point of a change order. But you basically strip out all the metadata of like the downstream sub change orders. And so it's not very granular categorization and it's human driven. So it's this whole new like data set that we sort of have and we have a ton of now interesting benchmarking reporting and stuff like that we're going to start publishing and sharing over the coming months. But yeah, basically what happens in the industry is there's this tension between doing the pre-con process and then also getting subs on board and contracts awarded. And the reason why you want to like hold off on awarding contracts is you want to get the best price possible. And so you want to evolve the design as far as you can. But what the architects want to do, and rightfully so, is they want to bring in the subcontractors who are experts in their trade as early as possible for really like 2 reasons. One is to release long lead items because you have to get them in a contract and pay them to purchase the steel or the millwork or the HVAC equipment. But then once they're in a contract, you're no longer competitively bidding that trade. You're locked in, right? And so then everything is a change to that contract going forward. And so what winds up happening is you wind up awarding a lot of contracts when the design's not fully done. And that's just natural part. And then what the architect does is like, great, we have the millworker under contract now. I'm going to work with them through the shop drawing process of submittals to basically finalize the design. And then once you're finalizing the design, they're asking the questions about, hey, what are the latest materials? What design details would you recommend? And then that impacts, if it's, especially if it's steel shop drawings, which are basically never finalized until you get to the shop drawing phase, then you're making changes within the steel package, and the steel package affects basically most other trades. So then there's other cascading changes as well. And so this is just like the reality. And like on, every project, there's a different flavor of this. But and then data centers, for example, which obviously probably many of us are working on projects that are data centers with our software, those projects just change continuously. Because if it's like a 3-year data center, and by year 3, the technology they're installing in that building has completely changed. And so there's going to be tons of schematic changes to the project and all sorts of stuff. So that's like the front end. And then what happens is usually because the change order process is so slow, decisions get delayed on the project. That impacts sequencing of all the trades. And then you're working overtime to catch up on schedule, or you're out of sequence, or et cetera. And that cascades.
If we deploy ClearStory and use it well, we would actually potentially see a reduced volume of change orders, because these ones that are contingent, like, oh, well, you didn't make a decision on that, and so we had to resequence X and Y and Z, resulting in some change with some cost impacts, like the volume would actually drop.
I would say we don't have like super hardened data on that, but that's the general principle. Yeah.
Instrument, right? Yeah. Okay.
The faster you can make decisions in construction, the better off you're going to be. And that's true for the RFI process, for the submittal process, but for particularly the change order process, because that's where you're making decisions on what is actually changing.
There's an army of companies that are trying to reduce rework and scope gaps. Rework is the number that's thrown around constantly to VC pitches. There's $1.2 trillion of rework. It's costing people a lot of money. So there's a lot of capital chasing the reduction of rework. What are you seeing on the ground, at least through your data? Are you seeing more change orders on average per job, normalized per dollar of construction spend, less? I'm wondering if those VC dollars are actually working. What are you saying?
I would say they're not, because that misunderstands the dynamics of the industry. What the industry really needs is a better way to handle change, because change is just gonna happen. Like I can't remember who I was talking to, but one of the huge marquee, developers down in Southern California, they said the design's not finalized until the owner of this gigantic developer walks the job. And when he walks the job, he's like, he feels it and he makes gut changes because it's his money. And that's part of just the reality, right? And then you're scrambling to do rework. That's one end of it. But yeah, I mean, we've had the rework pitch for 20 years. I mean, that was Plan Grid's pitch, that was BIM's pitch, and it's just not the reality of how dynamic and fast paced construction is. So I think the way the industry should be heading towards is, how can we make the best decisions we can upfront, get contracts awarded with tools like Join, shorten the pre-con time as much as we can, because at the end of the day, we want to shorten the pre-con time. Like if we can just shorten it, then we're going to spend less money. So the more decisions we can make upfront, great. And then the better we can handle change during the project, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah.
And if we can reduce rework, fantastic. I mean, Andrew, you were at the Autodesk Partnership Summit.
Oh my fucking, sorry, excuse my language.
The contractor who spoke at that said, if I hear the word rework in any of your pitches, I'm walking away.
What's behind that? Why did he say that?
That was a Canadian contractor, Luigi, just so you know.
Okay, I'll follow up with him.
Well, it's a Bay Area contractor that was acquired by a Canadian contractor, but yeah.
Rework's like not even ever make sense. It's like logically doesn't make sense from what it actually is. The owner has an expectation of what they're building. And if they want to have a change in design or change in something, they kind of are entitled to do that.
But that's a different bucket than how people, I think, typically talk about rework, which is there's a genuine mistake. That pipe penetration didn't go where it is. Not that, oh, the owners changed their mind because that's a valid change order. But
I'm going to qualify the rework I'm going to bring up, but like a lot of our customers talk about design rework on the front end, where you make the only contract you have is with the designer. You're making decisions about what this project is going to be. Maybe you release some scopes, but like the owner changes their mind, or it takes too long for them to make a decision that they need to make, and the design team has been off and running a certain direction, and now they're off course and they have to redesign.
Yeah, and the goal, I mean, again, the goal is to reduce that. So don't get me wrong. The goal is to reduce that. But I think, yeah, I think like that project where I had 2,700 change orders, we had 2 years of pre-con, and we did a good job in pre-con. Like I believe we did. And the job was just so damn, we had 2 architects. We had, you know, art installations all over the project with 5 different artists, and each one had different design requirements. And like the owners didn't, make hardened decisions until we were well into construction. And even in that 2 years of pre-con, we didn't get all the way through it. So it's like, was that worth it? I mean, of course it was, but again, that's just the reality. And then on top of that, we had the inspector come out and change a bunch of stuff, right? That the architect believed was correct. And so, but again, I do think, technology and AI is all going to work on multiple sides of this challenge. And, hopefully we will see, especially if it's wasted rework. But it's something we're going to keep working on as an industry for years.
Yeah. So one follow-up question just on the pre-con piece. Like we hear a lot of pressure to get, it depends a little bit on the job type, but like you definitely want to get through pre-con, but the number of incremental packages people are releasing is just going up and up. You've gone from, well, we bid the job out and like we bought the whole job at once, to many more incremental GMPs. Sometimes like someone in our cab was talking about one with, I think it was north of 50 incremental GMPs, like releasing scopes while the design continues to evolve. Are you seeing that? It seems like that would be a source of incredible change in the scopes that are under contract, where neighboring scopes like aren't fully defined when they're released. Or am I just saying complete gobbledygook? That might be the answer.
Well, you cut out there a little bit.
So yes.
Sorry, yeah, we am I on the right Wi-Fi? Yeah. Our customers tell us that pre-con is evolving to a much larger number of incremental GMPs, and that smaller portions of the job are being put under contract and people are beginning work on them, and you're sort of releasing the scopes as you go. Are you seeing that, and is that a driver of change?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure. It's kind of like similar to what I'm describing, is like there are certain trades you want to get locked in and released early. And then at the end of the day, and then just by definition, you're out of sequence of releasing trades. And so there's like coordination of, you're still competitively bidding out other trades. You're locked in on other early trades. And then the design is like evolve. The other like cold reality of the industry, which is like an interesting thing to like think about, is over the last 20 years, the way we design projects has like dramatically changed. 3D design tools did dramatically change how projects are designed, and they made it way easier to design things, and they made it way easier to like change things. But when you think about it, architects work on billable hours. And so if you were, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and you're doing it on paper, the architect had a much bigger amount of billable hours on a project. They had to have a sea of draftsmen to draft all these projects. So BIM came out and they were like, hey, now you just need one architect to draft all these drawings that you used to do by hand, or I guess CAD came out. And then BIM came out and took that to another level. So the reality is like architect firms, their billable hours have been progressively shrinking every single year. And so how do you maintain the size and scale of your business if your billable hours are just continuously shrinking? And so that's where you see architects way more involved in CA, construction administration. So they stay on through the course of the project, and that's like a new source of revenue. I mean, they've always done that to some extent, but they're way more involved like during the project than they were in the past. And they defer a lot of the design to be competitive, because again, they have to be competitive in order to win projects. So that's where they also like defer a lot of the design to like trade partners. And that's just the reality. That's like my lived experience. I'm like, hey, why don't we have a fully designed millwork package? It's like, oh, we're going to work with a millworker to finish the design. And I think AI is going to take that to an even further level. I mean, as soon as you can vibe code designs, their billable hours are going to shrink even more. And so the model for an architecture firm is going to have to like change to handle that. And so they have to think of other ways to make money. And architects need to make money. We need people to design great buildings. So there's a bunch of other dynamics at play that like cause this situation we're in.
It's interesting. Just curious, like as you're thinking through your growth and your go-to-market of how you're like building additional tooling, where like obviously the elephant in the room is Procore. I believe you guys have a pretty good integration with them. Like how do you see those two playing together? Is it a very like in unison community, or are you going to push upstream and really try to get into more of the workflows that Procore owns now?
Not in Procore's current like wheel set. Like we're not planning on building out a full project budgeting solution. The way we see the industry is everyone has their own financial software. So there's Procore financials, there's Autodesk costs, there's CMIC, there's Vista, there's SAP. Most GCs it's a pretty wide range in the GCs we work with. Many of them use Procore for project management. Some of them use Procore financials, but not all. And our whole point of view is that project financials is where you're budgeting and forecasting your project, and you want that to be private. And so it's really a question of, do you want everyone inside of your budget where you're forecasting your fee and your allowances remaining and all that private information? And generally when we ask a GC that question, they're like, no, I don't want people seeing my financials. And so that's sort of our just like general point of view in the industry is keep your project financials private and use us as the collaboration layer to work through change. So the change order process by its nature is collaborative. You have to be aligned with the counterparty on what's outstanding, what the current review status is. And that's why we work well as a complement to wherever they're doing project level financials. And the big architectural gap that those companies don't have, or they've attempted to solve it in some ways, is ClearStory is like a network architecture. So everyone has their own ClearStory account. You basically are connected between your projects on a contract. And that's what allows you to share data between projects through ClearStory. And without that architecture, it makes it really hard to do the workflows that we do.
Is that still a true statement though with Procore? Like I feel like they've pushed that for 10 years and they are at a point now technologically. So Autodesk 10 years ago did this. Yeah, Autodesk did the transition to network based 10 years ago. It was brutal. It took them forever. They acquired a bunch of companies. They still have that idea of a network base. Do you still see that as a pain point for Procore customers?
Not to cut Cameron off, but yes. And the Procore's $1 billion into rectifying it technologically, and I sat in on one of their owner roadmap presentations, and it was like, hey, with Procore Connect or whatever they call it now, you can exchange RFIs between Procore tenants, and other stuff is coming later. It's
so.
Well, but
that right.
So they all have a collaborator role feature where you can log into someone else's project and you're granted a collaborator access. The challenge with architecturally is you kind of need a product in the middle to handle the workflow between those two projects, right? And so syncing data between one job and another is one thing, but actually having a connected workflow that shows up between projects is kind of a whole different thing. I mean, the concept of ClearStory is not a new concept, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with build.com, but everyone in the broader world has an ERP, and you need to figure out what accounts receivable, accounts payable, invoices are outstanding. And so Bill.com connects to people's ERPs and allows you to share invoices between companies. So we invite our vendors to our Bill.com. They submit their invoices through Bill.com, and it integrates with NetSuite, our ERP. And so ClearStory is a very similar concept, but for construction out of contract work. So change orders primarily, but
I can ask like a bit of a competitive question. So Rumbix was acquired by Autodesk. We did a pilot much earlier on when we started the company with a large mechanical subcontractor. They took an interest in Rumbix and helped them develop their platform. Their problem was TNM tracking. They were very frustrated with the pace of development at Rumbix. I don't specifically know why, but they obviously had a very large head start. There's a two-part question. Do you see them as adjacent to your value proposition? And if so, why do you think ClearStory has been able to get more traction than Rumbix, given their head start?
yeah, I mean, Rumbix launched before us, but it was kind of interesting. It was like around the same time we launched our company, they launched like their T&M module. Um, it was like probably a year into ClearStory. We were building an integration with Procore, and they launched their own T&M module as well. And there's a couple other companies out there that have like a T&M ticket module as well. I think the challenge is all those companies approach it from a field productivity standpoint. So they like have it, as part of their offering for the foreman, right? So it's like, which like I would kind of say from outside the industry, that makes a lot of sense, right? It's like, hey, the foremen are the ones doing T&M tickets. That's a workflow that should live in their workflow. But that's where like that's just where the T&M process starts. It's not where it ends. And so I think the two challenges of why we've, I don't know, somewhat won out in just that T&M module. I mean, I think Rumbix has done a great job with time tracking and field productivity, and like I think a lot of their more core stuff that they offer. And I think they got a lot of customer feedback of T&M being a pain point, because it definitely is. But I think the reason why we've somewhat continued to sort of win in the industry, if you will, is one, it's two-sided. So like it's very easy for the GC to create a ClearStory account, log in, and see the T&M tickets they've signed. And so we've really focused on making it easy for the subcontractor to use ClearStory with their GC customers. And now we have enough market saturation where a lot of those GCs are asking them to use ClearStory, right? And so it's like, would I use the tool that my customer's asking me to use, or try and use a different tool? And then the other part of it, though, is just the workflow. You have to like take the workflow end to end. And again, T&M tickets is like the foreman creates it, the foreman gets it signed. That's just the starting point. The next point is it has to be rolled into a change order request and sent to the customer. And we take that process all the way to the end, including taking them through getting the change order approved by the customer, doing the review cycle, all that kind of stuff. And so I think we've just approached it from a different side. And most of the companies over the years that we've competed with have really focused on only the subcontractor side of the equation, and then mostly from like a field productivity standpoint. So it's just kind of like a different approach. And I think that's why we've sort of gradually kind of won out over time.
I'll shoot him a text.
Yeah, it looks like we lost him. So as we're waiting, I'm just like, here he's back. Hey, Cameron, you're back. We lost you for a second there.
Yeah, last 10 seconds, we lost you.
Sorry. Yeah, I think just like we've approached it from a different side of the spectrum, which I think is why over time we've won out. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So
yeah,
we just go back.
Like,
yeah, go ahead.
There's an axis somewhere where you have like sophisticated electrical subcontractor, like these big electrical subcontractors, and you have your typical paint sub. And like I feel like all the energy I hear about is on the like larger systems trade partners, and starting at the painting and winning there is like going to prove a product to be easy to adopt.
Well, I think for us too, like building a network, like Turner's one of our largest customer, and they use us all across the country. But in order for ClearStory to add value to them, every single one of their subs has to be able to use it. So we can't just like pick a trade and focus on it, which is a challenge for every startup, right? We've been forced to like lack focus in certain trades. And so as a result, but we had to do that in order for it to work as a network with all the subs. The painter had to use it, the final cleaning company had to be able to use it, and the really sophisticated electrical contractor had to use it. So that was another like benefit to us, is we had to focus on the whole industry and making it work for every trade. And like honestly, mechanical, we have a fair amount of small and large mechanical customers, but that's actually not one of our best trade verticals. We're doing a lot of, we're doing a lot of product work right now to like better handle their rate structures, and we're working on a product right now to better handle electrical like NICA rates and stuff. But actually, electrical, even though I think we have a long, but also it's coming up soon, ways to go on. Like electrical is really unique pricing. Assume you guys are familiar with that, but it's actually one of our largest trades by volume. But I still feel like we have a long ways to go to like really nail product market fit to get their pricing workflows. I mean, we have customers that upload 18,000 material rates into ClearStory, and it's like a foreman has a hard time searching through those, and even the estimator has a hard time searching through those. That's where we think AI is going to play like a big part in ClearStory and this change order workflow moving forward.
And at the extent, like if everyone is adopting those, let's say cost estimating workflows, where does ClearStory go after, let's say T&M and change order tracking? Do you go full into estimating in general, not just for T&M, but for every job? Because now it just makes sense. It's a great workflow. Like where does your mind go and how you think about your roadmap to the extent you can share that publicly?
Yeah. Yeah, we're starting to share like what we've been working on the past few months a lot more. Like we have the kind of like the end-to-end workflow to solve the change order challenge, but there's still and so like what we have is like this, like take design changes, right? We call it a change notification, but it's like an object to create a change, send it to your subcontractors, give them a deadline of when to respond. You can track all the responses in ClearStory. We've got a bunch of reports and ways of actioning those and helping the GC just get their arms around it. I mean, without ClearStory, it's like chaos trying to track down all the pricing exercises.
Mm.
And so we've got a great tool for that. And then when it goes to the sub, we offer them a suite of tools to either upload a change they've created outside of ClearStory or create one in ClearStory. And then when it goes back to the GC, we have a change order review module where they can redline the change, mark it, revise and resubmit, track all the revisions. And then we have a way for the GC to package that and send it to the owner. And it's all amazingly automated and efficient, but we haven't layered AI into any of those core steps. And so our vision and what we're actually launching, we're going into closed beta with the first one of these next week, is we're basically creating agents for each of those workflows. So when you get a design change, we're building a change notification agent that helps them analyze the design change, recommends who they should send it to, recommends what the cost estimate might be, because we allow them to forecast what they think the cost will be for every trade internally today. So that agent will, and then it tells them what might be missing from the change, what they should ask the architect about. But then when it goes down to the sub, this is the first thing we're releasing is a change order pricing agent where they can send it their takeoff, they can send it a voice note, they can send it whatever information they have, and it'll automatically build the change order requests. And then when it goes back to the GC, this is also going into beta soon, is a change order review agent where they can set up their own checklist. The agent will tell them what's passing and failing, what they need to have human in the loop on. But over time, we're going to start connecting these agents to other external tools or building them ourselves, where when the sub gets that design change, it can perform a takeoff or it can connect to an estimating tool to help them assist in the takeoff. And eventually, the way we're building it's all human in the loop. So AI is going to draft everything and then the human can review it. Long tail, once we've nailed accuracy, probably a couple years down the road, you can see a world where if you have all your pre-approved rates in ClearStory, the change can immediately go back to the GC for review. And that's where cycle time can get dramatically cut down in the industry. And instead of like the owner waiting for the next OAC meeting to ask a question about the change or get a clarification, they'll be able to ask the agent and educate themselves on, hey, here's the cost we received back from all the trades. It's really, hopefully that it gets to a point where it's like, do you just want to make this decision or not? Here's the price. But then what they'll be able to do is chat with the agent and be like, what are options for us to save money on this? What can I go back to the GC with? Or, hey, this price is actually great. Can I add scope to this? And so that's where we see, AI playing a big role in the change order process going forward.
How do you think about pricing for that? If you're like in that example, you don't have, I'm guessing your user-based pricing right now. Maybe that's a bad assumption. How does that change if there's not a user actually doing that?
Yeah, I mean, we've launched a handful of AI features, and they're all like packaged within our current pricing. The cost on the features we've launched isn't like dramatic, and so honestly, we're still trying to figure that out. We've been spending a ton of time with a lot of our customers, just openly chatting with them about that. Because I think the big thing our industry wants is like cost certainty, and with token maxing and token usage, it's like it can be cost uncertainty. I mean, this isn't like AI coding where they're like crazy computational, but when drawings get pretty darn big, there's a fair amount of compute to
Mm.
analyze things. And so we're honestly trying to figure that out. We're probably going to eat the cost. We have a high margin today, so we're probably going to eat a lot of the cost early because we want to get people using this stuff and getting feedback. But that's something
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
actively
Let me ask you. I
analyzing
guess
right
let me
now.
ask you in a different way. Not maybe like your token cost, but like so say right now it takes 2 weeks to review a change order, approve a change order with Clear AI agent. It's almost instant. Are you thinking through, or are you going to be able to like bill the owner a higher rate because of that? Or do you think it's still going to be very like usage based? So just broad example that we've seen in the market. I always give like the Harvey example. So Harvey, the legal AI, they're trying to price at scale where like right now due diligence for an M&A merger takes 3 months. They think with Harvey it can take 1 month. The 3 month bill was $1 million. They think they can charge $6 million for 1 month because they've compressed the timeline. Like, how are you thinking about, hey, now we're actually compressing timeline? You've talked a lot about like the pain of this like taking forever. How does that like relate back to you be able to charge more or charge per outcome or anything along those lines, like kind of getting away from the user-based pricing model?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think the way our big opportunity as a company with ClearStory is not like charging an arm and a leg for our software. Like our big opportunity is getting the whole industry using ClearStory. Because the TAM of we're one of the companies that like our addressable market is literally every specialty contractor, every general contractor, every owner, because they all deal with this process. And so the way we're thinking about it is like, how can we charge the right price so we can stay in business, but get everyone using ClearStory? And we also don't want to like price ourselves out of that opportunity to have the whole industry on ClearStory. So yeah, I think what you're also kind of referring to is sort of like outcome based pricing a bit, right? Is like, hey, if you can reduce it down to instant, that's obviously incredibly valuable for an owner or for a GC. So we're not quite thinking in that terms.
It's interesting because like you'd almost have to build that at the owner level because if everybody's going to be using ClearStory, and it means that there won't be a differential in change order review time between different GCs, right? Like the value of that is going to accrue at the owner level, right? I mean, it'll save time along the way, but it's not going to turn into GC margin in a durable way because it'll get eaten out by competition, right? I mean, maybe you disagree on that, but it like
Yeah, I mean, the way we're like, obviously, an agent has cost, right? And so the way our software works today is that when a GC buys ClearStory, part of our pitch to them is if you pay for ClearStory, you get access to all of the GC tools that we talked about, but you also get to grant your subcontractors free access to ClearStory for that project.
yeah.
And so they can use our tools to create tags, create change orders, upload CORs. So we have thousands of subcontractors using the free version of ClearStory every day. The agents to do all the pricing and the T&M tag agent for field tags and stuff like that. And then we also offer a whole suite of tools that the subs can buy. But even on those invited projects, like we're probably not going to make the agents part of that offering the GCs grant the subcontractor. And same if you invite your client to ClearStory today, they can get free access to use like the review tools today, but we probably won't make we'll probably give some limited usage of the agents to expose people to it,
Mm.
but it's not something that's going to be part of that free offering. So it'll sort of be like an upsell lever for us.
I talked to a couple of general contractors about change orders. Some of them really like them because they can make more money. Some of them really don't like them because it can impact schedule and it's more administrative work for them to do. So I see a divide. But for the ones that say they don't like them, yeah, there was a situation where they asked me to, help them with some Excel work, and I said, okay, send it over. They're still tracking change order revenue when they're forecasting their revenue, 12 and 24 months in the future. So they still obviously very, very much care. Do you see a world in where ClearStory is providing maybe some data or some point of view on what change order revenue could be on a project, given the amount of data that you've amassed over these projects? I mean, obviously just talking about owner GC change orders.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like when you say some GCs make money, it's probably dependent on the type of contract structure they have. For most like GMP contracts for a general contractor, they're basically a pass through, right? So a change order is going to be a change that impacts the contracts, subcontracts they have on the project, right? So most change orders for them are costs on the side of their ledger. And then what they need to do is make sure they cover the costs either in an allowance, in contingency, or they have the owner pay for it if it's outside of the scope of the original GMP. So for those types of projects, which is the vast majority of general contractors, change orders are just like pure risk. And if your fee on a project is 3% and the sub change order request is $10,000, like your upside is $300 in extra fee. And so for the most part, it's an administrative burden, it's risk. For the subcontractor, though, that $10,000 is their top line revenue. That's their budget. And so if they mismanage that, or the change order takes a year to get approved, and they've already, because usually contractually they have to proceed on the work, they're effectively financing the cost of that change. And so for subcontractors, it's like a huge, they can leak a lot of revenue, but it's also just like a huge cash flow impact for them in their billing cycles. A lot of our customers who are like fireproofing contractors or final cleaning companies, a lot of times their base contracts on projects will be like $500 because they actually don't know the scope, right? They'll be like, hey, we just need you to follow the electrician around and fireproof all their penetrations. Or the final cleaning company, it's like, hey, we're going to award you $10,000 because we're not sure how much we're going to need you for additional cleanup. So those types of companies, like their revenue can be 40% out of contract work or even like 50% out of contract work. And when you think about the billing cycle of trying to like track the work in the field, price it in the office, send it to the customer, wait on the customer to approve the change order,
they're not staffed
just so they can.
They don't have the central offices to do that. The administrative. Anyway. Sorry, I don't need to cut you off.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of those customers, 40% of their revenue is driven through ClearStory, which is kind of wild to think about.
Nuts.
Like on the other end of the spectrum, I won't name their name, but one of our largest subcontractor customers, it's a very specialized business. They only have like 5% of their annual revenue is change. But they say it's the most painful 5%. And if their company's margins are only 15% or 20% or whatever, it's 25% of their potential fee is this variable cost that they have to go, recoup. So back to your original question on the GCs who like change orders, I don't know the specifics, but they might be self-performing a lot of the work.
It's
or lump sum. Yeah.
It's lump sum work.
Yeah.
They're just taking a flyer on a number. It's obviously a different problem. That model imposes a lot of different problems than like GMP or like, CMAR type projects. But yeah, it seems like you have a lot of the data. Like I wonder if you tie that data back to the specifics of the project, like contract type or anything about the design. That gives ClearStory an edge in knowing, hey, we see signs here that make us think that there's going to be a lot of change orders on this project.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's that side of the question of like predictive analytics based on a company history. That'll be challenging for anyone to do just because every job is so unique. You need a lot of context for if you were going to have like an agent try and predict that. They would need a ton of context. But that's a possibility. The other possibility too is just like predictive analytics on likeliness to get approval and like speed of approval based on past data. And we're actually partnering with one of our big GC customers right now on helping them facilitate an early payments program. And change order, risk and outstanding exposure is like a big part of like their willingness to pay early. Like, are they on top of all their change orders? Is everything in ClearStory? Are they responding quickly? Stuff like that. And so again, because like if you're a subcontractor and you have a $100,000 contract and you'll know the billing cycle at the beginning of the project, it might be net 30, net 45, net 60, whatever it is, it's written in the contract. So as long as you're on top of like your pay applications, making those accurate, submitting them. It is painful because you got to wait 45 days, but at least it's somewhat predictable. If 20% of the project's cost is out of contract, it adds a whole nother cycle to getting paid for that. And that's like our job for specialty contractors with ClearStory is we make the processing time shrink down dramatically. And then we give them a bunch of tools to help them work with their GC to get the change orders approved.
Mm.
And the cool part is like it benefits everyone. Like in the scenario where GCs hate change orders, like it's a tool for the sub to make it as easy as possible for the GC to understand what's out there. So it's really one of those unique things where there's kind of like ROI for everyone to work through this process faster.
Yeah, it seems like it. What's the biggest bottleneck to distributing across the industry? Like, why do people think, oh, actually, I'm not interested in ClearStory. I already have this solved. Is it the type of contract model that they're pursuing? Is it some other factor? What do you see?
I mean, it's a lot of, it's interesting. I've like studied Bill.com and like a lot of their early challenges. And, in that they were, now they're a publicly traded, multi-billion-dollar company, but they struggled like educating the market on why they needed something new. Because basically early on, everyone was like, oh no, I already do invoices in my ERP. Why would I need another tool? And it's like, well, how do you route approvals internally? How do you understand all of the invoices that are out there? And so there's a lot of like evangelism and education that had to happen to convince the industry to buy another tool. And we're kind of in a similar spot with change orders, right? Like when the CIO first hears about ClearStory, they're like, no. We've already bought change order software. We have CMIC or we have Procore financials. And that's like understandable. Like I get why they would think that. But then when you start talking to their teams, it's like, hey, what does the change order process actually look like for you guys? And they're like, oh, well, once a month we email our subs and we ask for their updated change order log. It's like, really? Like, why do you do that? And they're like, well, we need to understand what's out there. It's like, oh, so you don't know what's out there. And again, it's just like a structural gap in the industry, but it does require evangelism. Like we're a new thing. We're not ClearStory we're the only thing that exists for this. So there's a lot of evangelism that we have to do. And it's getting less and less now that people know who we are and we've got a ton of traction and proof points with their peers and stuff. So it's definitely accelerating a lot, but there's still a way to do that, on every engagement we have.
Well, I'm going to wrap us up here. Appreciate the time so much. It sounds like you have sort of a very unique and interesting perspective on change and like emphasizing the trade partner's role in this. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I don't know if there's any last thoughts or last questions, but we really appreciate the time, and yeah, I'd love to talk again sometime.
Yeah, Cam, this was really good. It's hard to get the perspective of, I think your perspective of the industry is very unique, just having seen so much data around changes and how that's trending. It'd be great to see how that's looking in a year, 2 years, once all this VC dollars diffuse in the market and, this like rework value propositions finally coming to fore. But I would love to read any data that you publish on that because it's very interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to see we're starting to analyze all the reason categories stuff we have now. And it's pretty fascinating.
Cool. We'll drop it there. Okay. We're going to stop streaming, but we'll hang on for 1 second. Thanks, Cam.